Have you ever wondered how a country where women barely go to the gym, don't count calories, don't own fitness trackers, and think of Pilates as something Americans invented, still manages to have some of the slimmest women in the world in their 40s, 50s, and 60s? You've tried gym memberships. You've tried counting steps. You've tried Pilates and yoga and boot camp, and the workout your friend swore worked for her. You've done everything you were told, and somehow the body after 40 just seems to have stopped responding the way it used to. Japanese women aren't exercising more than you. What they have is something quieter than any of that. 5 everyday habits so woven into Japanese daily life that most women there don't even think of them as fitness. Not one of them requires a gym. Not one requires a diet. Before we start, if that's your kind of thing, hit a like and subscribe to my channel. It really does help more than you'd think. Now, let's start with the first one. And it happens in the very ordinary act most Western women only do when they're trying to burn calories. Walking is where all of this begins, and it's the habit that looks least like anything a Western woman would call fitness. In most of the West, walking has quietly become an exercise, something you schedule, track on a phone, and log into a fitness app. In Japan, walking is transportation. It's how women get to the train station, how they get to the grocery store, how they run errands, and how they visit a friend 3 blocks away. There isn't even a separate word for going for a walk the way there is in English, because walking is simply how the day already moves through itself. The Japanese word for it is Sanpo, and what it most accurately means is walking that doesn't require a destination beyond itself. It isn't a workout, there's no measurable goal attached to it, and it accumulates without any effort at all. A Japanese woman living in Tokyo or Osaka averages somewhere between 6,500 and 8,000 steps a day without ever thinking of a single one of those steps as exercise. And that's more than most Western women manage in a full week of trying to. The body doesn't particularly care whether walking to the market feels like fitness or not. It processes the movement in exactly the same way it would process a scheduled workout. Glucose gets used, blood flow increases, and the cardiovascular system stays gently active throughout the day. And the only real difference is that this version happens naturally, 5 or 10 times over the course of the day, without willpower ever needing to enter the picture. This week, try walking to just one errand you'd normally drive to. Not because you need to burn calories, but because it's how the day was probably supposed to move along in the first place. Walking is only the surface of it, though. What Japanese women do when they're not walking at all, when they're standing still, in between things, waiting for something, is where the next quiet difference lives. Between all that walking, there's another quiet difference, and it isn't a movement at all. It's what Japanese women simply don't do, which is sit for 8 hours straight. The average Western workday is designed almost entirely around a chair. You sit at a desk, then in the car, then at dinner, then in front of the television, and by the end of the day, the body has been folded into the same position for most of its waking hours. What most people don't realize is that prolonged sitting doesn't just fail to burn calories, it actively slows the metabolism down. And sitting for more than 6 hours a day quietly deactivates the large muscles in the legs, glutes, and core, the same muscles that would otherwise be burning energy in the background whenever they're engaged, and turning them off changes how the body handles everything else it takes in that day. Japan has a phrase for the opposite of this, Tachi bunka, or standing culture. Commuters stand on trains for 30 and 40-minute rides morning and evening, not because there aren't enough seats, but because standing is simply the default. Salarymen stop at tachonomi, standing bars, for a quick drink after work rather than pulling out a chair to sit at. Many offices arrange kaiwa desks, standing meeting stations, where a 5-minute conversation happens on your feet instead of around a table. None of this is discipline, and none of it feels like effort. It's design. The Japanese day is simply built to keep the body upright more often than not, and the metabolism responds accordingly. Try setting a timer at your desk today, and every 30 minutes, stand up for a couple of minutes, not to walk, not to stretch, just to stand. What that looks like across a full day is roughly what a Japanese day already looks like naturally, without anyone in it ever thinking of it as exercise. There's a moment, though, when the day finally slows down and a Japanese woman does sit, and even that turns out to look entirely different from how the West does it. When rest finally arrives in a Japanese home, it looks nothing like the Western version of resting. There's no sinking into a soft armchair with a footstool, waiting for the day to be over. There's simply the floor. Traditional Japanese homes are built around the floor as the natural surface for daily life. Meals happen at chabudai, a low table where you kneel or sit cross-legged. Tea is taken in seiza, kneeling with the shins tucked under. Reading, chatting, and watching television all happen down at floor level, often on a thin cushion called a zabuton. This isn't a nostalgic tradition kept alive for the benefit of tourists. It's how most Japanese homes actually function every single day of the year. What that looks like inside the body is entirely different from what a Western chair asks of it. Sitting in seiza engages the ankles, knees, hips, and core simultaneously in order to hold the position. Sitting cross-legged in a gura keeps the spine long and the hip flexors mobile rather than compressed. Even the simple act of standing up from the floor and lowering back down again, the most ordinary movement at a Japanese home, performed dozens of times a day, is essentially a small squat that keeps the muscles around the hips and thighs quietly working long after most Western bodies have retired them. Western sitting collapses the body into whatever support it's leaning against, while Japanese sitting asks the body to hold itself upright without help. Do this for a lifetime, and the muscles that would otherwise atrophy with age stay quietly present, without a single deliberate exercise ever having been scheduled. Try it tonight. When you sit down to watch something, spend the first 10 minutes on the floor and notice which muscles have to wake up to hold you there. Something quieter happens later in the evening, though, and it has nothing to do with how you sit or stand at all. It happens in water. Between dinner and sleep, there's another habit built into the Japanese day, and this one takes place in water. Almost every Japanese woman ends her evening the same way, soaking in a hot bath for 15 to 20 minutes, in water heated to somewhere around 40 or 42 degrees Celsius. This isn't a shower, and it isn't the place where washing happens either. The actual cleaning is done beforehand, seated at a low stool beside the tub, so that the bath itself can be reserved entirely for the act of soaking. This ritual has a name that carries real weight in Japanese life: Ofuro. And it isn't about hygiene at all. What it's really about is what happens to the metabolism during the hours that follow it. The mechanism that most people don't know is that when core body temperature rises during a hot bath and then falls afterward, That drop is one of the strongest natural signals the body uses to enter deep, restorative sleep. Deep sleep is the window during which growth hormone releases most heavily, and growth hormone is one of the most active drivers of overnight fat metabolism and muscle recovery anywhere in the body. The entire practice is 15 minutes in warm water, taken roughly 90 minutes before bed. Nothing more elaborate than that. What comes last, though, has nothing to do with muscle, water, or how the body is positioned. It has to do with a clock and with a single small rule that quietly reshapes everything else on this list. In most Japanese households, dinner happens somewhere between 6 and 7 in the evening, and once dinner is finished, that's the end of eating for the entire day. There's no late-night snack waiting a couple of hours later, no dessert brought out at 9, no small handful of something to go with a glass of wine at 10. The kitchen closes quietly and completely, and it stays closed until breakfast the following morning. What this creates, without anyone in Japan ever giving it a name, is a natural 12 to 14-hour eating window. Modern nutrition research has since called this time-restricted eating, but in Japan, it was never a diet. It was simply the schedule of a culture where evenings end earlier, and where nobody grew up watching the adults around them snack their way through the late-night hours. The physiology behind it matters more than the terminology. When food stops arriving in the body a few hours before sleep, insulin has time to fall back down, and only when insulin is low can the body actually switch over to burning fat as its primary overnight fuel, something it simply cannot do if a snack at 10 in the evening keeps insulin elevated through most of the night. Every one of the 4 previous habits on this list, the walking, the standing, the floor sitting, the evening bath, helps regulate metabolism during the day. But this last one is what actually allows the body to use that regulation overnight, which is when most of the real repair work is quietly happening. That's why this habit is the 5th one and quietly the most powerful of the group. If the kitchen doesn't close, the other 4 are all working uphill against a body's still busy processing food it doesn't need to be processing in the first place. So try closing your kitchen at 7 for 1 week, not in order to eat less, but simply to let the body have the overnight window it was designed to have. None of these 5 habits on their own would look like enough, but taken together, they describe something the Western approach to staying slim rarely arrives at from any single direction. A body that quietly stays the shape it was meant to be, without a fight. Walking that wasn't exercise. Standing that wasn't training. Sitting that wasn't sitting still. And a bath that wasn't just about being clean, and a kitchen that closed on time. Japanese women, as a whole, across generations, quietly live inside them, and the difference is visible on the body without any of them ever trying. Which one are you starting with? Leave it in the comments. We read everyone. If this quiet, green Japanese approach to living well resonates with you, Wabitara is where we collect these habits one video at a time. Subscribing means the next one finds you, instead of the other way around. Goodbye and see you in the next video.